Okay, let's do this. The week that was. I'm Ken Minyard, and I normally do this feature that we do every Saturday with my son Rick, but he's missing in action with a well-deserved day off. You notice I always say well-deserved day off, never say didn't deserve it, but he's got a day off. Anyway, Rick's not here, and he will undoubtedly be with me next week. But in the meantime, I'll try to go solo, see if I can still do this. Um, Let me report first. We have over 85,000 subscribers. No, that's not right, Ken. We have 85,000 followers. That's more like it. 85,000 followers. Subscribers, quite a few less. But still, we're pretty happy with the subscribers. Those are the ones who make up what we call the 99-cent project. And we have over 400 of them. We're going for 500 by the end of August, and I think we're going to make it. And maybe 100,000 followers by the end of August as well. So things are going well. I think it's probably because of, my good looks. I just come up with that conclusion. No kidding, obviously. But I think it's because we're speaking to people. We're just people like you, and we're talking about something that is really important, and that is saving our democracy. And they see an old guy like me talk about it. They tend to dismiss older people. It's just the way it is. I probably did the same thing as thinking, they don't have much to contribute, but we do. And I hope that people see in me an example of that. But I'm broadcasting from Studio A. I call it Studio A. My wife, Jackie, calls it Ken's Corner. What it really is Jackie's Kitchen. That's where I'm broadcasting from. But let's get to the old mailbag first. On Instagram this week, Stubert57 writes, "Why are you wearing his hat? Liar." Now, why did you have to put in liar? But you ask a good question. It turns out that this hat, you see the Trump, but it says up here, see, arrest Trump. So you didn't see that part. Not your fault. I didn't realize it. And so I may have to retire this hat in favor of my other hats, which I'm prepared to do. Do something. Have do something hats on Amazon now. Just saw one the other day. Just go on Amazon, write in do something caps, and it should come up. Also on Instagram, WD40 writes, "You're either gay, old timer." They can't help but mention this old timer thing. You're either gay, old timer, or you don't understand Democrats. They're not like they were in the JFK days. Well, whether I'm gay or not, I don't quite understand how that has to do with anything. If you want to think that of me, I don't have any. There's nothing. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But yes, we're not like we were in the JFK days. You see, we call ourselves progressives. Progressive, that means we make progress. We progress from the days of, 50 years ago. We're not the same. I think we stand more today than ever before for democracy, for justice for all, for we the people, as it said in the Declaration of Independence. Yeah, thank you for that, observing that, but that is absolutely true. From TikTok, Jeffrey Williams says, "Now here is an octogenarian who has his shit together. Why don't we put him in the White House instead of the dipshit who's in there now?" I like TikTok. YouTube, Deborah6294 writes, "So glad I found your channel. Reminds me of my grandpa, decent, kind, and strong." We old people don't think of ourselves as old because most of the time we're sitting down. And when you're sitting down, you see the world the way you always have, and you don't think of yourself as being old. And then you try to stand up. And then you kind of realize, okay, I'm old. And then you look in the mirror and you say, oh, I get it. Yep, you're right. I think that's about it for the old mailbag. Let's get to what we discussed this week. Oklahoma starts teaching historical fiction as fact. They have a right-wing nutcase there by the name of Ryan Walters, who's also an anti-pornography crusader, but he runs the Department of Education. And he has mandated that they have to teach that the 2020 election was stolen. by Biden and the Democrats from Donald Trump. Maybe, and I just find that hard to believe that they're actually teaching that as fact, but the story said that was the case. I thought maybe they would teach that as an option, which would even that be absurd. But they are expecting their students to carry this message forward that Donald Trump should have been president in 2020, but we stole the election, despite the fact that it's just obvious bullshit. I mean, any thinking person would have to conclude that a conspiracy that large, without anyone ratting them out, would be impossible. It's hard to tell 3 people something and keep it secret. You're thinking of thousands of people that have to be involved in this takeover, this overturn of the election. Just that alone should tell you it's impossible. If that doesn't do it, how about the 60 judges who took these lawsuits that they filed trying to prove that and just threw them out? Said, go away. This is bullshit. I keep using the term bullshit. Horseshit. Let's call it horseshit. And but aside from that, then they had the government agency in charge of elections say that this was the fairest election in our history, the fairest election in American history. So anyway, Brian Walters, by the way, made news after that by having a bunch of porn discovered on his computer in his office. Some other ladies who were members of the board walked in, and sitting right there on his computer were some really heavily, not even redacted, heavily pornographic images. And so they complained. They went and complained. He said, I don't know. I don't know what he said. Probably that he was doing research. I used to work with a guy when I was in Minneapolis who was also an anti-pornography guy. And he was discovered to have a mountain of pornography in his basement. I don't recall the details now. It's been a long time ago of how that was discovered. But he said, yeah, I'm doing this. This is for research. And never heard from him after that too much. I don't know what will happen with Ryan Walters. It is Oklahoma, and I grew up in Oklahoma, and I lived 90 miles from the Tulsa massacre that happened. White terrorists killing hundreds of black people who lived in this community in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I never heard a word about it. I didn't know it happened until just a few years ago, when it started making news. I never heard a word about it. And I'll bet you anything that in Oklahoma now, they still don't teach that happened. This is wrong. This isn't right. People shouldn't graduate from high school being dumber than they were when they started. But that's the way they're doing it these days in my home state of Oklahoma. On the 4th of August, that would have been Monday, I just observed that in the previous Sunday's news and the headlines online and in the newspapers, that they had 4 headlines. I picked 4. There could have been a lot more. From Reporters Without Borders, 6 months of Trump's war on the press. The Guardian, Trump is waging war against the media and winning. Center for American Progress, the Trump administration and the FCC are weakening freedom of the press. Harvard Kennedy School, Enemy of the People, Trump's war on the press, the new McCarthyism, and the threat to American democracy. And the New York Times had a long article, Trump's efforts to control information echo an authoritarian playbook. Well, yeah, exactly, because that's exactly what he's doing. You should call it fascist playbook, because that's what everybody understands. The first thing that they do, certainly among the first things that they do, is take over the media. Look it up. Check out Hitler. Check out Mussolini, Stalin. All of them, they had to control the media, because with a free media, you can't get away with stuff. And so that's what authoritarian, if you want to call them that, regimes do. On the 5th, an important message for fellow resistors I have. What was it? I was making a pitch, I think, for our 99-cent project, but I'll do that later on. Shoot the messenger. Oh, that's a good story. Donald Trump didn't like the weak job numbers that came in the previous week, so he did the obvious thing. He fired the messenger. It was Erica McIntyre, who was the top NLRB official in charge of compiling statistics on unemployment. Well qualified, apparently. They've been doing this for 25 years or something. And he didn't like the numbers because it made him look bad. They were weak job numbers. So he just, the same day they came out, he fired her. And he said in a few days he'll be appointing a new one. And I don't think it's happened yet. But when it happens, you'll know that this person is Trump's pick. And this person is going to have to, if he wants to keep his job, or her, probably a he, if he wants to keep his job, he's going to have to toe the line. That means when he puts out numbers, they've got to please his boss. They've got to please Donald Trump. So we're not going to have accurate numbers. We can't believe anything that comes out of this administration. Think of that. We cannot believe anything. Anything that they say, as I've said before, you have to reverse it, completely flip it, and maybe you'll get close to the truth. Their job numbers in the future can't possibly be accurate. And I guarantee you that they're not going to reflect negatively in any way on Donald Trump. He won't allow that. On the 7th of August, gerrymandering. I just went through the history of gerrymandering. We all know about gerrymandering and what it is. It means to redraw districts that are favorable to you, to your political party, so that you can have a representation in Congress that is dominant. And why it's in the news now is that Trump got together with Abbott in Texas, Governor Abbott, and said, listen, if you could pick up 3 or 4 or 5 seats off of your Democrats, the ones the Democrats hold now, it would sure be helpful because I'm going to lose if we don't do something. So Abbott said, sure. And he's just about to do that, except for the fact that a bunch of the Democrats in the state legislature have left the state rather than provide the Republicans with a quorum that they need in order to enforce their gerrymandering ideas. Those guys are heroes, by the way, and women. I assume women. I've just seen guys so far. But they really are heroes. They are people that put their asses on the line. They've been threatened with retribution, $500 a day fines, maybe thrown in jail, maybe thrown out of their positions in the legislature, and yet they are holding firm. In the meantime, it's up to Democrats to say, if you want to play that game, we're in. 2 can play the game. And it was led off by Gavin Newsom, governor of California, who wants to have an initiative on this November. He wants to have a special election that he proposes to not do away with the redistricting program that we have in California, but to suspend it for a time until such time as the Republicans stop with this bullshit. And I think he's going to win. I think in California, I think the people are ready. The Democrats, the people who are at least not Republicans or at least not fascists, are wanting to see a change. And I think they believe that we should fight fire with fire. We have to fight, I guess some people would call it dirty. We've got to do our damnedest. And Newsom says, okay, if you want to do that, I'll double that. I'll take every single damn Republican that is in a Republican district in California. I can draw around that. I can do that. Meantime, Pritzker of Illinois and Hochul of New York and Massachusetts, I'm sure, and Delaware and other states will get on board, states that have supermajorities, and they'll redistrict as well. It's not fair, nothing fair about it, but Democrats have for too long not recognized, well, since Trump, we used to feel that, there were rules and we'd follow the rules. Republicans kind of did the same thing. And that's the way it worked, but not anymore. Not anymore since the Make America Great Again crowd has come along. You just can't. You have to fight fire with fire. So that was it, fight to win. ICE incentives. Where do they get these people? I've asked that before. Who is it that gets up in the morning, puts on his mask, goes out and starts ruining people's lives? Where do they find these people? Well, they've got some pretty good incentives. Here's what Chrissy Noem wrote when asked, when